Hey everybody, I'm Graham Parker, and you're listening to the Around Pickens podcast. And depending on how you're listening, you may also be watching, because for the first time we're adding video to the show. It took a little work, but we have a studio now, where every month we will bring in someone involved with the county government, and talk to them a bit about what they do and what big things are focused on at the moment. Now, today's show is designed to give you a bit of an overview of this institution we call the Pickens County Government. What is a county government? Why is ours set up the way it is? And who keeps it all running? These are the questions that I set out to answer with this month's guest. Chris Stansel is chairman of the Board of Commissioners, and in a broad sense, I guess you could say that the buck pretty much stops with him when it comes to overseeing administrative services, which makes him the perfect person to lay out the big picture of how our government works. Our conversation covered a variety of topics that will give us a roadmap going forward as we make our way around the different parts of this organization. So buckle up and come along as we hear what Chris had to say about local government. Well, Chris, it's good to have you on.
Thank you.
Our brand new Around Pickens podcast studio.
How cool is this?
Yeah, seriously, it is. Well, I appreciate you coming on, being our first guest here.
No, thank you. I'm just the idea behind creating this. We've got to give 100% credit to Graham here that came up with a way to start interviewing and talking to people within the county, within all the departments, and I'm excited to be the first to get to go through. And I know we had Kirk Anderson when we were originally doing the audio podcast a little while back, and going through some of the road things, and then as we've been able to kind of create the video side here. Yeah. I think it's going to be a good tool to help provide information that all of our citizens will be able to appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. I think a big reason for doing this is just sort of making it more clear what we do here to everybody. Because I know, like, if I weren't working for the government, I wouldn't hardly know half of what we do. So I'm glad we can talk about a topic that, I think confuses a lot of people, and that's county government. Every little place has its quirks, and it can be hard to keep up with. So if you don't mind, just briefly, can you tell us what is county government and how does that fit into the different kinds of governments that we have?
Yeah. So every state, I'm sure, has a different set of how they do this. But in Georgia, there's 159 counties. Each of the counties are responsible for several of the mandates set forth in state law to carry out whatever the state had put into some of the different laws, whether they're constitutional or whether they were later amendments that were made, with additional legislation. So counties, were geographically split up and designed to be able to represent the people within that smaller geographic territory. And it gives a more local control with a lot more direct face-to-face. You're pretty likely to run into your commissioner at the grocery store, but not the governor, and even less likely to run into the president. So the smaller the office, the more direct access I think that people have. So counties were set up to do that. And each county has what they call their enabling legislation. We call it the local act, is the term that's kind of used internally. But that enabling legislation is where the organization of the county is voted on by the legislature. So you have the House and the Senate that then eventually signed in by the governor. So each county has their own separate enabling legislation that establishes their form of government and how it's run. And here in Pickens we have that, and then separate from that you have your cities and you have your municipalities. Some of them are not considered cities necessarily. In Pickens we've got Jasper and Nelson and Talking Rock that all have their own charters that are also voted on by legislation to establish their government. And so we kind of all uniquely have our own role as to what we play in how we run what we do. That makes sense.
It's interesting working with the state on that. And just talking about municipalities, these sort of communities that we have that make up the larger community of Pickens.
Yeah.
How do we work with municipal governments? What's the nuts and bolts there?
So, and there's a lot of different ways. One of the main things is called intergovernmental agreements. So we'll have IGAs that we'll enter into, whether that's dealing with maintaining certain things. For instance, with Nelson or with Talking Rock, we may have an IGA in place to help with their roads and streets departments if a tree comes down on the road. That since we have 24/7 on call staff that's out and about working during inclement weather, where they don't, we can go and get those roads cleared. And so we'll have IGAs to be able to meet certain needs there. With public safety, obviously, there's tremendous number of IGAs that exist to be able to provide the most rapid response to whatever occurs. So Jasper may be responding outside their city limits to an incident in the county, and the county will be responding into areas that may be in the city. We also have a similar with Parks and Recreation. There's ball fields in the city of Jasper that they have formed an IGA for us to be able to use those for Parks and Rec activities. So kids are practicing and playing in games in those fields in exchange for the county maintaining the property. But it's the city's property that we work closely with that. We'll meet frequently. We participate. There's a lot of joint projects that we're both part of. We're both part of creating a comprehensive plan, or not both, all municipalities, and how we're going to kind of carry out our actions. We spend a lot of time just in communication with working on projects and things of that nature. And like any other group, there may be different objectives. We, as county government, represent all residents, whether they're unincorporated or if they live in an incorporated city too. So we have to take those objectives, of what those residents tell us that they want to see us follow through and pursue, and then we have to understand that the city represents only those within their incorporated boundaries. So they're not always going to be the exact same. There's some, whether it's housing, they will refer to as high density versus low density, the number of homes per acre, the number of lots per acre. There's infrastructure in place in the city to provide those things, whether it's sewer and they can tie into that. While in the county, it's more pushed for low density, more protecting the less overpopulation. That we're responsible for making sure we do. It doesn't mean we don't agree with the city. It doesn't mean that we're in a fight with them. It just means that we've got to represent the people that we represent as well. So kind of gives a little bit of a push and pull from time to time, but we meet frequently. I think you've got some great people in leadership in each of the municipalities that we work closely with, and look forward to continuing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk leadership for a minute, because once upon a time it used to be that there was one sole commissioner, but now there's a board of commissioners, hence your title, chairman. Can you tell us why did we make that change, and how is it different from what we had before?
Yeah. So back in 2013 was the first year that the board of commissioners was established. So that's when the full board took office. I think it was in 2010 when it went on the ballot. The citizens actually voted on a referendum. They were given a choice to either remain a sole commissioner, which there's only a handful in the state of Georgia that are still sole commissioner counties, or to go with what we have, a 3-person board of commissioners that's chairman-led. So the chairman handles all the day-to-day operations and functions as the day-to-day manager. A third option was also on the ballot for a 5-person board of commissioners with a county manager. And back in 2010, it was voted on, and the 3-person option was what won. And so it's what was implemented and kind of put into place. And I think that I'd be remiss not to plug that. I think it's working very well. I think we've got some very, very active commissioners that are very responsive to listening to the concerns of their constituents and trying to do everything they can to make sure that they're imposing what needs to be imposed. Would it have worked well in one of the other states? Possibly. But this is what the voters had chose. I think a lot of people, when they bring up and suggest a change or that we should go to one of the other forms, it's one thing you need to understand, that it's not something we just do overnight. It requires going back on a ballot, having the voters select that on a referendum, and then working with the legislature to create a new local act that would reflect and represent that form of government. And it's not to say it won't happen at some point in time, and should it or should it not? That's kind of a decision voters a lot of times have to make. But I would say that I think that what we're doing is working effectively. It's actually been very, very fun to work with the group that we have, and I hope that we continue to do so.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the work that you do. Again, it's kind of confusing maybe to understand what you're responsible for versus what you're not responsible for. Can you shed just a little bit of light on that?
Yeah. So I think collectively, the Board of Commissioners has a group of departments that we're responsible directly for. We oversee whether it's the road department, water department, recycling center, parks and recreation, finance, planning and development. There's about 15 total: fire, EMS, the 911 center, emergency management, marshal's office, animal control. Those all fall directly under the scope of responsibility for the Board of Commissioners, whether that's their policies or the management of their staff or their budgets, or all those things fall directly under us. We also work closely with other elected officials that are not under our direct responsibility. And while working with those other elected officials like the sheriff, the tax commissioner, the probate judge, magistrate judge, coroner's office, all of those individuals will run their own departments that they were elected to run. The kind of the unique challenge for a board of commissioners is we are responsible for establishing the budget for everything in the county. So each of those elected officials will submit their budget. We'll do everything we can to try to fund everything that they've asked for. Sometimes we have to go back and forth to show, hey, we've only got X number of dollars, so and work with them. Last year was as smooth a year as it could have. Nobody asked for anything crazy, so we were able to fund what was asked for, and there wasn't a lot of back and forth. But there have been years historically where those conversations have went back and forth a lot. So even though we vote on and establish the final budget, we don't manage their individual execution of that budget. They're elected, they're held accountable by the voters, just like we're held accountable by the voters. But they don't work directly for us. So I think that's sometimes a misconception. A lot of people feel like the Board of Commissioners is responsible for A, B, and C, and that's not always the case. They've got their own constitutional duties and responsibilities that they're there. So, I mean, collectively, that's kind of the breakdown on how those two things work. I think individually as the chairman, because one of the roles as chairman is to function as the day-to-day manager of all activities within the county. Mine varies a lot. I have to change hats. I have to put on my commission chair hat a lot of times and deal with kind of the policy side of things and the overall big picture things that we vote on as a board. But I have to take that hat off and put on the other hat that's responsible for managing, close to 300 direct report employees and the departments that are contained within there. So I have to kind of juggle those two from time to time.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot to juggle. What does your day-to-day look like? Is there a normal day in your job?
I think I took normal out of my vocabulary shortly after getting elected. So it varies. There's some weeks that it's dealing with complaints, or it's dealing with people calling in issues, or they've had problems, or and so one day it may be road department with just constantly dealing with calls as to issues with pothole fixes and things of those natures. Other days it's I try to make sure every week I'm spending time with our finance department and I'm reviewing over the bigger picture, looking at our budget, where are we at, where are things going well. I also spend a lot of time with our road department, as we mentioned before. That's probably one of the other departments that I spend a tremendous amount of time with. But then other days it may be the animal shelter. It could be planning and development, spending time going through, what big projects are going on, where's growth taking place, where are the permits coming from, and what are they doing. Work a lot with our public safety, whether it's with the fire and EMS side of things and where we're fitting there, or if it's with our marshal's office on enforcing the ordinances that we have in place. So it juggles. There's not been a slow week yet. I'm about 2.5 years in, and we still haven't had a slow time yet. But it's exciting, and it changes on a daily basis. I'm a planner by nature, so I come in first thing in the morning, and I've usually got my day kind of organized and laid out. And usually by 10 o'clock, that's just kind of that idea went out the window, and I've had to move forward and go a different way, because one of the other responsibilities I have is to represent the county in public events as well. It's actually laid forth in our local act. So those evening meetings and evening different processes to try to attend as many as possible to be a representative of the county there. It's been neat to have the Board of Commissioners we've got now, because our board really has took on that mantle themselves as well, and loves to attend and loves to be present. So it shares that burden just a little bit. And I think that's been really, really neat to see play out. But is there a normal daily? I don't know how to define that. I'm usually walking around with a phone glued to my ear, or with somebody in the office most of the time. So,
well, I guess that's why it's important to just have good department heads, a good administration, so you can be largely hands off on the day-to-day issues. Which I will say, if you want to see a good visual representation of that, Ashley Craig in the Planning and Development Department put together a flowchart on our website, pickensga.com. So check it out if you get the chance.
It is. It's under the About category, and I think that's one way we're able to do what we're able to do is we've divided up all our departments. Each department has a department head, but we tried to split them into 2 categories, and that way we could have a director over each category of departments. So we have our public safety, director of all public safety operations, and that covers fire, EMS, EMA, emergency management, and then also our marshal's office and our animal services. So all of those kind of fall directly under his scope of responsibility, so that they have somebody that reports directly to. And then we created the other category is the director of administrative operations, and that covers your road department, water department, parks and rec, recycling, all of our internal offices within the building, whether it's HR, finance, personnel, payroll, all of those different categories we'll handle there. So it gives kind of an extra level of accountability, responsibility. Somebody else is double checking to make sure everything's in place, and kind of frees me to be able to bounce from one to the next. There's still a lot of direct communication with department heads, and a lot of questions still come direct from department heads, but we do have a flow chart in place to kind of create a better flow. I've always feared being the tip of the funnel that stopped everything up. And so the broader we can keep that tip, I think the better it is, that we can continue to get more done, but yet still not let it get out of control.
Well, let's sort of round out the conversation on talking about a part of the government that's beyond the administration, boards and authorities. How are they structured, and what are they responsible for?
So several of them are different. Some are established in state law. Some are set up in our local act or our local legislation. And some are just advisory boards that are more policy-based boards that are in place. The ones under state law, I mean, you have your Board of Assessors, who is responsible for overseeing your tax appraiser and making sure that they're setting the values based on the current market. They have a tremendous responsibility with keeping that current, so that there's not a big adjustment that the state requires to be done. So the closer it is to being dead on accurate, that one is. I will brag on them for 1 second. I attended a tax class just recently, and it's statewide that was put on, and Pickens County actually was one of the highest rated in terms of the most accurate assessed value of property in relation to the market that was there. That they do an incredible job with trying to keep it current, and it sometimes causes frustration in a market like we have today, because property values have been increasing. So the more accurate it is means the more your property is appraised at. Back in 2008, it was the opposite. In 2008, 2009, property values started to diminish, and so they were having to stay accurate on the other side. I think they do a tremendous job with trying to stay on top of that, and their staff that works with them has a very challenging set of responsibilities. You also have the Development Authority that's there to kind of oversee industrial development and kind of any big development projects. The Airport Authority exists to kind of manage all airport operations, and they're established in our legislation, in our local legislation as well. You then have some others that are advisory boards, like our Parks and Recreation has an advisory board. We have a planning commission that oversees the public hearing for all rezone requests, and then makes their recommendations back to the Board of Commissioners for what they should do. Water Advisory Board that works with our water department and hears any complaints or anything that may come through. They'll take that up and then send that information over to the Board of Commissioners. But all of those are appointed by the Board of Commissioners. Some have specific rules as to how they're appointed. The local board of health, for instance, the vast majority of the members are appointed by the board of commissioners, but by law, there's certain positions that have to meet certain requirements. One has to be a licensed physician. One has to represent the elderly community. One has to be the school superintendent. I mean, there's just certain roles that have to be a part of that. That even though we may be the ones that make the appointment, we have to make the appointment based on how that's established. The Airport Authority has a couple positions similar. There's a couple positions have to be pilots. There's another that has to be a member of the Development Authority. It's just in the way that it was established. So we make those appointments, and then as those terms start to expire, then we're forced with having to reappoint or to find someone new that's willing to step in and fill that mantle. I'll look at the camera and say, if you're interested, we'd love to hear. I mean, we try to find people that are uniquely qualified and interested in that particular field, so that when we do make those appointments, it's somebody that's going to contribute with what's there. But each board member is constantly trying to evaluate and talk to people that have an interest in serving, and to find people that are willing to continue to give their time to meet in a monthly meeting and to do what they do it's challenging, but it's necessary at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. You mentioned these members having to have specific training. Do you and the other commissioners engage in any training of your own?
Yeah. So the ACCG, which is the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, puts on training for commissioners. There's a mandatory class that every commissioner has to have when they're first elected. 3 days training over in Athens at the University of Georgia that they put on. Then there's a training curriculum that's laid forth. There's a certified county commissioner training program, which is to go through a number of core classes that you could probably pull it off in a year, but normally it's spread out over 2 to 3 years or some even longer, to go through and become a certified county commissioner, which is taking classes like finance, economic development, tax, appraisals, ethics, just a wide variety of topics that they go through and do. Then as you complete that, they have some specialty tracks, so you can actually become specialized in either economic development or public safety or a variety of other specialty tracks of training that are there. Myself, I will finish next month with the core classes to be a certified county commissioner. I think Commissioner Tippins only lacks one more class, and he'll be in the same boat. Commissioner Tatum's just a couple classes behind there. So, I mean, it's all three have been actively working through trying to get the training, the education, and kind of the knowledge base that's necessary to do the job effectively. Is it required to be an elected official? Probably not, but it definitely helps that you know what you're talking about. For me, the training is great with the information, but it's being able to be in class with all the other commissioners from the state, whether they be chairmen or just post commissioners from other counties. They're all in the same room dealing with the same kind of issues, and so the in-between conversations becomes probably one of the best as to how are you dealing with this, or have you ever seen this issue? And it's widespread. You may be in a class one day with the chairman of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, and then somebody from a small county in South Georgia, and then us and a couple others from North Georgia. And you get to hear kind of the perspective from each of those different counties, and getting to network and build some rapport there has been really exciting over the last few years. And I think all of us realize we're in the same type of battle, same type of responsibility that's been placed on us, and all of us trying to figure out how to do it the best we can, which is challenging.
Yeah, I bet. So, I think it's encouraging that you guys are not only continuing education, but just getting to network with other leaders.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, some of the classes, that our little region here, the area that we're in, kind of working closely with Gilmer and Fannin and Dawson and Gordon and all the other counties that we're directly involved in things with. Georgia also has kind of split all these different counties into different regions. We're part of what's considered the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission. And there's a monthly meeting of commissioners that meet, in there outside of a training, but, participating directly in areas that affect our region only. So we get to, once a month go and get together with those other commissioners all along and kind of see what they're dealing with at the same time. So it's helpful for sure.
Yeah, I bet it is. Well, I think this has been a pretty enlightening conversation. So the way we normally hope to end the show is by putting you in the hot seat with a question from our viewers, which, hey viewers, if you'd like to ask Chairman Stansel here a question, please submit your questions to questions@pickenscountyga.gov, where if your question is concise enough and appropriate enough, we might just put it on the air. But since this is our first main episode and we don't have any questions, I'd like to give you the final word. Is there anything you'd like to tell the residents of Pickens, either about what we've been talking about or anything else?
Yeah, so before I dive into that, I just want to say again to you, this is really neat. I think this is going to be a great tool moving forward. I know I'm probably going to be the most boring of any of your interviews that you get when you start getting into the individual departments and the more exciting stuff. And so I do want to say thank you for giving me the chance to be in here and kind of kick off the first of our podcast, but I think it's going to be the first of many, and I'm looking forward to seeing how those go. But as far as to the citizens, just ultimately a thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I look forward to continuing to hear from you. I joke with people frequently that, if you feel tempted to throw your complaint on Facebook, before you do, how about call us and give us a chance to see is there something we can do to fix. If you don't get what you want at that point, then feel free to go on and say whatever you need to say. But we hate learning about the problem on those formats. We'd rather get the call and try to tackle it. And it may be something that we can, and it may be something we can't. But we'll do all the best we can to be honest. I look forward to kind of continuing to hear your questions, continuing to hear your concerns. We try to be very responsive in what we are able to do when we get those calls in. So I look forward to just continuing to participate. And thank you for the chance to be in here.
Yeah, well. Chairman Stansel, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, Graham.
Yep. Well, that was quite the overview of county government. I think what struck me the most about that conversation was the level of cooperation that's required in local governance. Right? I mean, on the county level, any significant changes to our structure has to be approved by the state legislature. Working in conjunction with cities requires trust and a firm understanding before we sign an intergovernmental agreement, and elected officials of all sorts have to have confidence and open communication to work effectively. They say that no man is an island, and I suppose it's true of communities as well. Big or small, they're all connected in some way, and at the end of the day, we just have to cooperate with each other if we want to have a fruitful society. But, I guess that's true of anywhere. Anyhow, speaking of community, we are going to close out the show by looking at what sort of events are coming up in the community this month. Now, as far as county meetings go, you can get all the information you want from our website, pickensga.com, which will not only give you all of our upcoming meetings, but also the meeting schedules of all boards and authorities. As far as the Board of Commissioners goes, we will be having 2 work sessions and 2 regular meetings on the 4th and the 18th. Those always begin at 4:30 and 5:30 respectively in the Commissioners' meeting room at the Administration Building. With regard to the greater Pickens community, you can't go wrong with either visitpickens.com or nopickens.com. Both sites are very in touch with the community and have great calendars. So, with big dates coming up in May, there is a casino night on Saturday the 6th at Chattahoochee Technical College from 7 to 10 p.m. Casino Night is a fundraising event for Angels on Horseback, a nonprofit organization that aims to provide therapeutic, equine-assisted activities to folks with mental, physical, or emotional disabilities. Tickets are $50, but that buys you a drink and $500 in chips to play on any of the games. So, if you're feeling lucky and you want to buy a ticket ahead of time, they can be purchased at angelsonhorseback.com. Also coming up in May, the City of Jasper will be kicking off their Jasper Downtown Live event series starting on Saturday, May the 13th. Downtown Live is kind of a rebranding of their second Saturday events that they did last year. Essentially what's going to happen is from 4 to 11 p.m., traffic on Main Street is going to come to a stop, and vendors are going to come out and set up some stalls. There will be a stage with live music, food, shopping, and evidently a kids zone. I really enjoyed these last year. It introduced me to some local businesses I wasn't previously aware of, and it was honestly just fun for the whole family. But hey, if you can't make it out this month, don't worry, because they'll be doing this every second Saturday between now and October. If you want to get more information on the program, visit their website, jasperdowntownlive.com. But with all that said, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Around Pickens podcast. I appreciate you coming along with us. Join us next month when we'll be sitting down with our marshal, Mike Carswell, to discuss the perils and frustrations that comes with enforcing the county ordinances. But until next time, I'm Graham Parker, and I'll see you around.